The St. Louis Blues have a big test against the Dallas Stars tonight in their fourth preseason game.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here in the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about how this is a big test against Dallas. Finally, training camp, well, folks, it is ending soon. And I also want to talk to you about the biggest stories this camp. We have a lot to get to on today's episode of Locked On Blues. And I want to start off by saying this. I understand. I sympathize. I really do when it comes to training camp, right? Because at the end of the day, I know that this isn't something that we look at and we look at these preseason games more specifically and say, oh, this is a big deal if my team wins or loses. It is not in theory. However, this is also something that I am a firm believer on. I do want to see my team accumulate some wins. And I know for you, you might be looking at this like, hell, is it that big of a deal if my team doesn't accumulate, so many wins in preseason games? And maybe for you, you don't care. But for me, I kind of do. I kind of feel like this is something, at least for me, right, as a fan of the Blues, where I do want to see them get a couple dubs. And I feel like you should want to see them do that as well. And the team that they're playing tonight, the Dallas Stars, well, they're a pretty damn good hockey team, if I do say so myself. So, yes, I want to see them beat Dallas by saying this. Yes, this is a big game. However, I do still believe that this team is capable of winning. I believe that this team is going to be able to come out and really show their true skills. I think sometimes it's a little bit difficult, especially, you know, when you have a bunch of AHL players, right? So, yes, I completely understand why there has been losses, but at the same time, I definitely want to see some wins. So, let's go talk about some of the lines that we're seeing today at morning skate. We saw today, and this is from Luke Korak, by the way. It was Suits centering the first line, Holloway on the left, and Kyrou on the right. Now, that's one thing that I really like is, again, Halls and Kyrou on the same line. We have on the second line centering Bukstad, and then on the left, Neighbors, and on the right, Stenberg. On the third line, we have Dvorsky, Torpo on the left, and then Kaz on the right. And then finally, on the fourth line, we had Texier with Lucic on the left and Mojo on the right. And then also when it comes to defensive pairs, on the first pair, we had Broberg and Folk, Lindstein and Kessel, and then Loof and Kessel. So Hofer will most likely be playing 2 periods. So that also looks good. But at the same time, I am still a little bit apprehensive because this is the roster for today's game. It is Nick Bustat, Dalibor Dvorsky, Dylan Holloway, Mojo, Kaz, Jordan Kyrou, Lucic, Neighbors, Stenberg, Suits, Texier, Torchenko, defense, Berberg, Folk, Kessel, Lindstein, Loof, and Skinner. So Hof's going to get probably 2 periods, and then Colton Ellis will probably get the final frame. Now, you might be wondering, Haley, is this the strongest lineup? Absolutely not. However, this is a lineup where you do need to test some of these players because, again, at the end of the day, you need to make cuts, right? And I understand that the Blues did make a big chunk of cuts, right? Which they should have done. And I think that's a very smart decision. But in a game like this, you need to be, I believe, a little bit more aggressive with who you're putting out on the ice because hockey begins in like a week, right? We don't have a lot of time left before the start of the season. So you need to get your act together ASAP. That way you can put the best product out on ice. So again, I actually think that this is a smart lineup, and you do have a lot of NHL ready players in this lineup. But again, my whole point is this: you need to put your best product forward for the most success, hopefully, the most success. And that is something too that, Coach Montgomery kind of talked about today, right? Because I mean, you're getting towards the end of camp, and that's what he stated as well. And you want to see more NHL players and everyday lineups. And right now, this is for the guys that are battling for spots, whether it's to make the team or to establish themselves in some roles. There's some guys that this is an important game for them. And then there's guys that obviously, this is just getting ready for the regular season. So it is really interesting too when you think about that, just as a whole, because Monty is right. For guys like a Jordan Cairo, a Dylan Holloway, um, you could even go with a Folk. This game, it's not a test to see if they're going to make the team by any means. We know they're making the team. It's more so a test if A, are they ready for the season? B, what do they need to work on if not? And C, where are they going to end up in terms of lines, right? In pairs. Now, for other players that I've mentioned, especially Lucic, who's on a professional tryout, a PTO, yeah, this game probably does mean more to him. Theo. And uh, the point is that for some of these guys like Dvorsky, they're battling to make the team. And the last thing that I want personally is to see Dvorsky get cut. That would break my heart. And I am honestly dreading that being a possibility. I do think he's going to make the team. And I've said that numerous times. I have come on this podcast more times than anything saying, I believe Dvorsky is going to make this team. And a lot of you say to me, Haley, that's not going to happen. It is going to happen. Um, I think at the end of the day, you really need to be in a position mentally of knowing that some of your favorite guys that are prospects may not make the team. And that is why, for a team like this, against Dallas specifically, you got to really hope that somebody makes an impact. And I really do believe it will be A. I do believe it's going to be Dvorsky, but B, I do think that there is something that he needs to do to kind of stand out. And I think he will stand out. I really do. I think that he is such a smart player. And that is why in tonight's contest, this means more than anything. And, I'm looking at some of the things that Monty said, right? And I know that he wants to see more out of Joseph and Texier. And I understand that, right? Because, again, one of the big, in my opinions, struggles that they both have is not always being able to stand out. And I actually thought Texie had a much better season last season. And to me, he looked a lot better. I mean, he is going to be on Team France for the Olympics. So that's really good to see. But obviously, you want to see him play a little bit more aggressive. And center, that's going to be a position where you have a lot of guys, really battling for this season, too. I mean, again, we can debate all we want about, who's going to be the 2C. Will it be Schenner? Will it be Suter? Will it be Buksak? Like, who will be the 2C? And that's the big question. So I do applaud the head coach for putting guys in different positions so that way they can kind of see who is going to be a 2C for this upcoming. So for me, I do believe, as I was going on about this game tonight, that there is importance in essentially the outcome not maybe score wise, but the outcome just positional wise. Because again, in tonight's game, I will be looking at centers. That is something that's inevitable. That's a position right now, especially that 2C position where there's a huge question mark and we don't know what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that we do have our first and fourth line figured out. When it comes to the second line, I want it to be Holloway and Cairo on the wings, but who will be the 2C? And that's the question. So, anyways, training camp will be ending soon. So, I want to talk to about what this final week of training camp is going to look like and why the final week of training camp is so important. But I want to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Personally, I love FanDuel because I like same game parlays. I'm a big same game parlay person. I told you to have Dallas Goddard last week for anytime touchdown and Eagles money line. It hit, you win money. So definitely listen to me coming up on some of the football games this week. So what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, so training camp is coming to an end soon. And I want to talk about how I felt about this year's training camp so far. I personally feel like individually, I am impressed with a bunch of players, right? But I feel like it's been, at least for me, a little bit quiet. Now, I'm not asking for, excitement like what's going on with the Minnesota Wild right now and that whole thing and debacle and drama. I'm not asking for games like Pittsburgh had with the Marc-Andre Fleury playing this final game, but I just want to see maybe a little bit more. And I'm not saying more effort, I'm not saying more enthusiasm by any means. I just want to see more. I want to see, you know, maybe a player like Dylan Holloway is trying the Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to see some more in a sense. And I think overall, when we've looked at this camp, there's been a lot of good takeaways. For instance, a healthy Dylan Holloway. I don't mean to be talking about Dylan Holloway like this, but the fact that he is healthy again, that makes me so excited because it was really difficult, especially last season, not having him in the very end of the season and the playoffs. It definitely took a little bit of a damper on the team. And I will say, I do believe that if Dylan Holloway was healthy and was able to play, the Blues would have won that first round against the very evil Winnipeg Jets. I don't think the Jets are a team that I want to consider a rival with the Blues now, but I am still very frustrated with how that series went down. I really am. I think that at the end of the day, and I think at the end of the day, too, I don't think I'm over it. I really don't. I think that that series haunted me for life. 1.6 seconds. I thought it was 1.7 seconds, 1.6 seconds. And it's really hard to shake that off as a fan. It's hard to shake that off as a podcaster. It's hard to shake off what happened because it was that painful of an end. And after that series, I thought to myself, what could the Blues have done to win it? What was needed? Well, defense, obviously. Defense was a big factor. We had Nick Leddy that would just stand by the net and watch the puck and not do anything. Personally, when it comes to Nick Leddy, he frustrates me. He does. Sorry, it's the truth. He frustrates me so much, and I'm happy they put him on waivers. I am. I don't want anybody to lose their job. That's why I can say that now because the Sharks picked him up, so it's not our problem anymore. He's still in the NHL, he's still making money, he's fine, just not with us. Now, a player that I need to see more out of is Justin Folk, and I've been saying this. Oh, have I been saying this? I just don't see him stepping up from last season. And maybe he'll prove me wrong, but this is why when you sign a guy like a Cam Fowler for 18.3 million across 3 seasons, which comes out to 6.1 million AAV, that's a great deal because at least we know defensively he's a huge playmaker with putting up assists. Defensively, he's able to get back fast enough in the D zone. We have some players that can't skate. I'm sorry, we did, and they were slow, and it was a problem. And then, let's not even get me started on positioning around the net. When the opposing team is coming into your defensive zone and they are kind of like, positioning around the net and you're not trying to block them out with some man-on-man coverage and you're just standing there watching, yeah, obviously they're going to most likely score. So, with camp this year being said, all things said, yes, I've been very happy to see Mayu playing well in the preseason games and doing well at training camp. I have been because the Blues desperately need to step up their defense. They do. I'm sorry, they do. Another thing that I wanted to see from camp was our younger guys. And I know that Natika Alexandrov got sent down to the Thunderbirds, but I was really impressed with him. And that was a standout to me. And it sucks. It sucks that some of these guys get sent down. Jakob Stansel got sent down. And that bothers me because I thought they played really good hockey, but I understand the development process. And I understand there's not enough roster spots. But then sometimes it makes me question players like a Mojo. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not. But again, it's a little bit frustrating. Now, what I will say is this. Braden Shen, our captain, Captain Braden Shen. Woo! Oh boy, he has stepped up. And if you don't think he's stepped up, I encourage you to watch tape of him at camp. And not only has he stepped up as a player, he has stepped up as a captain. He has been seen on ice after practice helping out Dvorsky with some one-timers. So has Dylan Holloway. And that's what a captain does. That is leadership. When you are helping out the young guys, that is what a captain is supposed to do. And we see this with captains all over the NHL. And one of the captains that comes to my mind, and I don't like this team, but it is Sidney Crosby. And you see him all the time helping out the younger guys on the team. And that's how you're going to get your team to grow. That's how you're going to get your team to thrive. It is all about making sure the vets and the younger players are on the same page. And the fact that you have a guy like Braden Shen, who not only is a Stanley Cup champion, not only who is a captain, but overall, he is the glue to this team. Yeah, that makes me excited. But there's a lot more that makes me excited about training camp, and that is the biggest storyline this camp. And it might surprise you what I have to say, but I think that you all need to hear this because we're all Blues fans. We all want another Stanley Cup, obviously. Like, I think about it all the time. Oh, well, we just won. Not, it's gonna, the years are kind of adding on now. Some of the guys that were on the team as rookies, they're in their early 30s. So I think it's about time where we kind of have to evaluate, you know, when is this gap going to close? So I want to talk about that. But I want to let you know to subscribe to Locked On Blues. And I have to tell you, I have been doing so many crossovers and, squad shows and roundtables heading into this season. And I appreciate all of your comments, every single one of you who have been following along with me on this journey. I have to tell you, I was nervous when I first began doing this podcast. I was because I didn't know, when you do a podcast, is it very formal or is it like talking to your best friend, right? It's studying. Every single day I listen to tapes, I take notes, and then I have to memorize it because I don't want to give you, bad content. And this podcast truly has changed my life. I love talking about the Blues. I get to talk about my favorite hockey team every single day. A team that I am a fan of. Not a team that I have to do work for, but a team that I'm literally a fan of. So It is super exciting, super humbling for me. And I just want to thank all of you. Locked on Blues is your number one source for daily Blues information. I'm on Twitter at Locked On Blues. And on Twitter, if you ever want to see, oh, did a player get extended? If you don't see me posting an emergency YouTube video, which I sometimes do, you can check out on Twitter at Locked On Blues because I will be posting all Blues news, especially during the games. I like to live tweet a lot. I've been working on that. So we have a lot of fun, a lot of reactions, and authentic, non clickbait conversation, which I see some other channels doing, and I'm going to throw shade. But, anyways, thank you again. All right, enough about the show, enough about me. Time to talk about, in my opinion, the biggest storyline this camp. And it is two people, number one and number two, Doug Armstrong and Jim Montgomery. So, this is why I say this. Number one for Doug, this is going to be his 15th and final season as general manager for the St. Louis Blues before Alexander Steen takes over. And I'm so excited for Steener, but at the same time, it's odd knowing that Dougie A won't be the general manager of this hockey team. He will still be involved with the organization, and that's really good. But I feel like that's going to be a storyline throughout the season as well, because when your general manager has their final season, obviously that's going to be a talking point. But most importantly, Jim Montgomery, Monty, whew, he holds this team so accountable. And I didn't know how training camp with him was going to go, right? This was his first training camp with the Blues as head coach. And the accountability factor and the goals that he has set for this team makes me very excited. For Jim Montgomery, one thing that I really appreciate about him is the fact that if he doesn't like something, he will address it and he acknowledges what the team needs to work on. Sometimes you see coaches making excuses. And while all coaches are competitive, he doesn't have a problem saying to the media how he feels. I like that he knows that in a game like tonight, the fourth preseason game out of 7, hey, we need to put some of these guys that might be AHL players out there and see where they fall. That's the truth. He's not making excuses. He's not saying, oh, well, these are just the guys we have tonight. No, he is saying, like, this is a game that's going to be a test for them. This is going to be a game where we see where they land, which implies to me that cuts will be made tomorrow. I think when you're approaching the season, you need to be smart, you need to be strategic, and you need to mostly, in my opinion, have somewhat of your final roster down at least 6 to 5 days prior to the first game of the season, just because you want to build that chemistry. And with Montgomery, you know, he's honest. Like, he's so honest about what he wants to see. I mean, I look at his transcripts besides listening because sometimes I like to look at words visually rather than, just listening. It makes it easy for me. And he talks about, goals that he has. It's always goals, right? It's goals about maintaining momentum. It's goals about what he wants to see out of the center position. He has all of these goals for his players. And it's not like he's going to be upset or mad if they don't achieve it. He just knows, hey, this may not be the best fit. Now, he knows that this is a playoff contending team. He knows that. However, he's not flat out saying, oh, well, these guys look awesome. No, he always acknowledges that there's something that they need to work on. And I appreciate that. I do. But the way that he says it, it's not condescending. He's not bullying the players like some other coaches that were in the NHL used to do. That might be an assistant coach for Team USA. But he does it in a way where it's very respectful of his players. I think he knows too that this is a team that has a lot of chemistry and they work really, really well together. And if you mess up that mojo, I know I'm not talking about Matthew Joseph, but if you mess up that mojo, you're probably not going to see the same results on the ice that you saw, especially towards the end of last season. But here's the thing. Monty talked about how important training camp is and how it sets up success for the regular season. So right now, all I'm thinking about is, well, if the Blues have yet to win any preseason games, can you still say it's a successful training camp? And I believe that that's a very difficult question to answer, especially because they still have 3 more games left to play after tonight. But it's a question that I've been thinking about for the past 24 hours because how can you say, oh, well, camp was successful if you haven't found a victory in any of these preseason games, especially now that we're seeing more NHL ready players? While tonight, I understand there was a bunch of guys mixed in, still AHL guys, PTO. I'm understanding of that. But it just kind of makes me question, how successful is this training camp going to be overall? Because what I see at practices, I like personally. What I'm hearing from players and coaches, I like. But it's these games that just make me a little bit apprehensive sometimes. So I want to know your thoughts below, but I think having a head coach that's able to relate to his players, that's able to motivate them, and most importantly, hold them accountable while setting goals is the biggest storyline because that's what this team needed. And that reminds me a lot of what Coach Berube used to do. I do miss him, but I'm happy that Monty is here. So, with all that being said, let me know your thoughts down below, and hopefully, we pull out a victory tonight. And like always, how I end every single episode, let's go Blues.